Welcome. I'm Riley Karsh.
I'm Tova Kopan.
We are thrilled to bring you the We Go Boldly podcast.
Let's talk big burning questions, life changes, and maybe a bit of personal business.
Let's be bold and brave together. Are you ready?
I am. Here comes the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Go Boldly, the podcast. We are, as always, thrilled to have you with us today and to be talking about our season 6 topic of busyness and self-worth and everything that goes along with that. And we are, of course, thrilled to bring you an interview today because we love interview day. We love talking to other people, having other people on the show, and getting a broader perspective on everything we talk about here on the We Go Boldly podcast. Before we dive in, I am, of course, going to welcome my incredible, fantastical. I need a new adjective. I got to come up with something new. It's season 6.
I
need
fantastical.
Another one. My fabulous co-host, Tova. How are you today? What's happening? What's going on?
I am doing well. I don't know when this episode airs, to be honest, but we are recording it in the middle of end of year madness. And I have to admit that the theme for this season feels like a personal attack every day.
Every time. And we should say end of school year.
End of
just
school
to
year.
Clarify.
Yeah, we're not that far ahead. Yeah. So this is end of school year. And I am working very hard to actively remind myself that just because I am busy doesn't mean I have to be caught up in the busyness of it all.
Yeah.
And it is hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, we were just talking about this yesterday, right? Because it's not even your busyness. It's like, I feel it's my kids' busyness and it's imposing itself on my life. Like, wait, this isn't even my busyness that's happening. What's going on here?
Yeah. And it's just a lot. And there's even this, like, I talk about not feeling present. I don't always know what day of the week it is.
Yep.
Or the date. And I realized that I don't want to say her name, but because she's always listening, but when like I ask what time it is, she'll be like, it's Thursday. And so now I'm really relying on her to tell me. I mean, I have a paper planner, I have an Outlook, like I have calendars on my walls.
Right.
But so this feeling of busyness is like legit. And so once again, this season could not come at a better time, but also it feels very pointed at me.
I am right there with you. And as my kids get older and they're in that like in between age where they can't quite do all the things for themselves, but they're old enough that they have so many things to do. It's just overwhelming. And it's in the degree to which I have places to be and there are not enough of me. And it's kind of bananas.
And it's like, this is the end of the year school party, but then there's that other end of year school party.
Right, where you're like, and oh my God,
like,
did we do this as kids? I don't even know.
I don't know. I think so. I think we did.
Probably. Right?
I was talking to another parent last night and they were like, her husband was sure that there was a field trip to a wax museum. And he kept talking about this field trip. And she's like, what are you talking about? But our kids are actually like putting on a wax museum. So we're all we have no idea what's happening.
Right. Just trying to stay afloat.
So I'm just trying to enjoy it because all of the things are fun.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And I think we'll get into that with our guest today, but I want to move us forward into that because we can talk about this all day and I don't want to take away from our guest.
Yes, I want to talk to her.
So speaking of, as I said, we're continuing this conversation around busyness and self-worth, and we've covered quite a bit of ground once we're pre-recording, as everyone knows, but once this episode airs, we'll have covered quite a bit of ground on this topic. And, as everyone knows, Tova, you and I could talk about this topic. I don't know. I feel like we could talk about this for an entire year. This has become such a big, important topic in our lives, but also I think culturally, it's really kind of coming to a boiling point. A lot of people are talking about this right now. And so we're really excited to continue our interview series with a wonderful colleague who works in the coaching field. And she's just an all around fascinating human, somebody who I've had the pleasure of knowing for quite a while now. Her name is Michaela Birdyshaw. She is the founder of Joy Enterprises, where her coaching business, Joy Inc., is on a mission to help you find joy and to give joy amidst the chaos and confusion of life. Joy is, so this is how she describes joy. And I really enjoyed reading this. So she says, joy is not the absence of suffering, nor is it merely the experience of happiness. Joy is the journey we create within. And I could not agree more with that. I'm going to read a little bit to you of her bio because I can't memorize it all because, as everyone knows, I have a Swiss cheese memory brain. I call it mom brain. I don't know. There's a lot of ways you can describe it, but everyone knows I don't remember things very well. So let me read a little bit of her bio to you before we completely welcome her to the show and get into the questions. But Michaela graduated twice from UNC Wilmington with a bachelor's in social work, a minor in psychology, and a certificate to teach high school English, essentially an English degree and teaching certification. After running the family manufacturing business for 10 years with a focus on business organization and marketing, she established her place in the business world. She is ordained through the Universal Life Church and has found her calling as a certified personal life coach through the World Coaching Institute. As a mother of two and a social butterfly, Michaela is very active in her community, local schools, church, Girl Scouts, recreation, sports, and so much more. Lots of busyness happening. Through all of this, she's learned to incorporate experience and intuition into the practice of empowering individuals to become their best selves. And through a professional relationship built on trust, vulnerability, and perspective, Michaela offers a space for you to grow free of judgment. So as a life coach and facilitator, her mission is to work with you to find joy and to give joy while navigating this bumpy road we individually and collectively travel. She aims to empower others to shine their brightest light so we can all glow a little brighter, which is the only way she knows to change the world. People who work with Michaela are ready to expand, willing to be vulnerable, and eager to grow. They find more of themselves within healthy boundaries and beliefs. Sounds very familiar to me. And wonderful. So welcome to the show, Michaela. We're so glad to have you here. I'll just start by saying, welcome and how are you today, which is what I always say to Tova, but, let us know how you're doing on this lovely afternoon.
I am fantastic. And I so enjoyed the intro. I can share your sentiment about this end of the school year, hullabaloo, and all the things that seem to be happening, because right after that is all the summer hullabaloo, which requires its own planning and busyness. So I feel it inside. But today I feel really great. Any opportunity I can have to talk with like-minded, especially women, but individuals who have something to say and have somewhere to go and have something to do. That's the kind of busyness I want to have in my life. I want to be this kind of busy where I'm like, oh, is the equipment working and all the things right? Because it gets me where I got to go. And to me, that's fantastic. So what a wonderful way to spend my day and to get time with you too.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we'll dive into, I'm sorry to say, we always dive into the deep end on our questions. We're not like the greatest at easing into the pool. We're like,
all good.
We tend to just sort of like chuck people in there. But we ask this of all of our guests because we're trying to sort of get this baseline understanding, I think, of how people define success in their lives and what it means for each individual, because we tend to think of it as something very personal and very individualized. So what for you, or how do you personally define success in your life?
Right. Well, so there's like the super big answer, right? Which is, on my deathbed, on the whatever comes next, did I do something meaningful? Did I bring joy to the world? Did I experience joy? And then did I give it back out? And to me, that's everything, right? Did I make something meaningful to me, to my people, to the community? And did I create that as a renewable resource for myself and for others? But in the day-to-day, it's, well, what did I set out to do? Did I do it with a conscious and a good intention, right? Or was I harumphing through it all and grinding, right? And did my day matter to me and to someone else, right? I don't always come all the way through with those things, but it really starts with what I set out to do. If I set out to do 25,000 things in one day, I will fail every time. If I set out to do 5 things that are super important to other people, but don't fill me, that's not a very successful day, right? So I saw a meme the other day, forgive me for getting a little memey, but it was something to the extent of, if you are driving your Mercedes to work as a status symbol of your success, but you hate every minute of being at that job, you've really got to reevaluate, the cost benefit analysis. What are you doing, and whose ladder, whose definition, like who are you trying to be or please? So to me, success is knowing what you're doing, being actively involved in it, and celebrating that and taking stock of that at the end of the day, and then learning from it, right? Like, as coaches, that's our gig, right? It's great, that didn't go well. What can we try next? And how can we do better? And what got in the way of that? And when we think about busyness, we find that it's, oh, well, I told this person I would do this thing, but I really don't want to. Now it's going to throw a kink in my day. And now I'm grumpy and cranky and I've got to go do these things. Sorry, kids, we're not going to spend time reading that book you wanted. Right? In that scenario, if my value system is weighed heavily on my relationship with my children, then my values have come up short. My ability to reach those goals is short. That's not successful.
Yeah.
If I'm choosing a job that makes me happy and fills my soul, and sometimes it takes time away from my kids, well, then that's a choice I have to make in how I want to balance that, and where I want to give and take, right? So success is, yes, of course, it's very personal, but to me, it's, did I set out to do something meaningful to me, to myself, to my family, to my community? And did I do it consciously and with intention?
So
That's the gold
that,
star, I think.
no, that is awesome. And that's, I mean, but that's a very, I don't want to say like grown up approach to success. So
it's a little evolved, right? Because
yeah.
And why? Gosh, watch a movie, watch read any novel, right? The idea is, culture tells us that we go to school, we get our high school diploma, we go to college, we get our degree, we meet our partner, our forever life partner, who's going to know us, love us, cherish us forever and ever in that 4 years.
Right.
And then we graduate, we get married, we get the house, the 2.3 children. And then what? Now you get the job and you grind. And when we think about like clocking in and clocking out and right? But all of that is great for a lot of people. But we don't all fit into that, right? And I tried and I tried and I tried. And I appreciate that you called me out on that, because that is a very evolved answer, because I only know that because I lived the other way.
So was the other way how you were raised as to what success was? Was it a very like accomplishment based definition?
Yes and no, and there's how our parents raise us, right? And then there's how culture and society raises us. There's how our institutional systems raise us. There's all of the things, right? So when we talk about this, it's not just my parents. My parents said, go be what you want to be, do anything you want to do. Absolutely. There aren't more supportive people for me. But there was still this idea that that's the natural matriculation of things, right? And when I found myself probably, mid 30s, right? I started looking and my life was good. I had a lot of good things, but my little flower that lives inside was just shriveling and fading, right? And I didn't know how to label that. I didn't know where that fit in with that perfect story of, you go to college, you get married, you do the things, you have the kids, and everything is wonderful, right? So for me, it was working with coaches that said, but why are you doing this? What value does that bring? What else can you do? What resources, what opportunities do you have? And having that space to say, I'm actually not very happy, gave me grace and room to say, well, what are the things in the way of that? Right. And it got to this place where I'm now like, okay, did I set out to do the things I intended to do? And do those things have meaning to me and others? And I feel grateful for that. And it was not without a ton of work, excruciating, painful, digging, awkward for the people in my life, because those conversations changed. And
Yeah. Was there
so it's an evolution.
Was there a lot of pressure to conform growing up? I mean, did you feel that pressure? Maybe not even within the walls of your family, but within school, within friend groups, within, religious circles, within whatever circles you were most often in. Was there a lot of pressure to conform to sort of standards, and then that like attachment to those values sort of as you were coming up?
Yeah, another great question. Thank you. So I was a really good kid. I was like perfect, I guess. The word should drove my decision-making skills, right? Or process of, well, I should be doing this. I should get this. I should do that. They want me over here, so I should go be that. I shouldn't be cranky. I shouldn't be tired. I shouldn't have wants, wishes, and desires.
Yeah.
I was quiet and complacent, and I was really a good kid, for better or worse, right?
Yeah.
So there were a lot of expectations on me, whether they were put on me or I labeled myself and chose that and said, ooh, what happens if I'm not perfect, right? And this is where we get into belonging and how we fit in and how we connect with others and how we see ourselves in that experience. And the fear of being disconnected, not being perfect, not being good enough, not showing up enough, not having enough, all the things, that gets in the way of being able to say, I actually don't think I want to run for this student council position. It's not my thing, but I did because that's my thing.
Right.
So it's very much, and it takes a lot of introspection and a lot of peer reflection and accountability and conversations like we have in our coaching practices to say, but why do you want that? Because if you want to be perfect, great. Let's be very clear on what perfect is to you. Not to the number of things on the wall or not, I just wrote an essay about this, and it's like not how much laundry you have or don't have folded.
Yeah.
That is not perfect. What's perfect is who you are and how you live that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to take a quick break. But when we come back, I'm going to make us talk about your family growing up a little bit more, because this concept of being perfect and being a good kid, which I also was, ties very closely to like this desire to keep doing things and keep saying yes. Like you kept saying yes to things. So my prep for you as we take this quick break is we're going to talk a little bit about, how time was prioritized when you were growing up. So we'll take a quick break and we will be right back.
Hey, Tova, you know what I love?
Coffee, definitions, uninterrupted reading time.
Okay, all of those things are true, but I also love maps.
As in Siri, take me to the beach.
Yeah, also as in who am I really and who do I want to be?
Yeah, I figured that's what you meant, but I also have the beach on my mind, so...
Well, we were talking about things we love, so that definitely makes sense. But the map I was thinking about is our Defining You course.
Yes, we put together Defining You as a way to map where you are and how you want to live your life.
So true. So many people struggle to find their purpose in a busy and noisy world.
That's why we made Defining You, our course meant to guide you to creating your own mission statement.
And there's good news. You can get it now on teachable.com. Find the link on our website at goboldlyinitiative.com/courses, or check out the link on our Instagram bio at Go Boldly Together.
We can't wait to see you there. Now, let's head back to the show. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So, like I said before the break, I want to know, perfection and that desire for it also has this very close connection to obviously your feelings of worth, but also to this desire to be, I don't know if it's a desire to be, but this busyness feeling, this, I need to be productive. I need to check things off my list. And I think those of us who were good kids really loved those to-do lists and loved, because it meant that we could get that atta girl and that gold star. So I know we've already talked a little bit about that difference between what, the world was telling us as we were growing up and then what our families were. But looking at your family, how was time and energy sort of prioritized? Were you given that gold star for those to-do lists being done, or was rest prioritized?
Oh, great question. And it's interesting. When I was little, I thought my mom gave my brother and my sister all the attention, and that I was the middle child who kind of got nothing. And now that I look back at it, I realize that she was busy driving me to all of my places and all of my things, and she fully supported that. I don't know as a family that we really prioritized rest, and maybe that's part of me today. I don't sit often. I don't do stagnant very well. But yes, we were celebrated for being interested and curious about life. So it was just got to keep going. And my mom's amazing. I mean, she did all the things. She cooked all the food, baked and sewed and you name it, right? So in my viewing, that is a perfect mom, right? Now, I don't sew. I don't know how to sew. I can't sew. I look like a person with gloves on, sewed something every time I try. So all my life, I compared myself to what I thought the perfect mom would be. And now with Pinterest telling me its version of what a perfect mom looks like, and Facebook telling me what a perfect mom looks like, I've now had to step back and think, whoa, what am I giving forward? What am I giving my kids about this very question: rest versus busyness, productivity versus busyness, aligning our behaviors with the values that actually matter to us. So it has kind of come full circle because I'm addressing that now with my own children. But at the same time, I still have that feeling, right? The PTO sends out a thing, hey, we need 20 bags of this. And I'm like, oh, that's got to be me. I have to sign up first. I have to, because I need that gold star. And guess what? I didn't sign up. And I didn't necessarily get a gold star, but I don't think anybody else did either. Right. And the world proceeded to turn, even though I didn't sign up to send in a bag.
Well, I recently, if we're going to talk about memes, I saw a meme, and I don't know if I shared it with you, Riley, in the past, but it was kind of along the lines of the early bird gets the worm, but the later bird also gets a worm. Right. And it's a perfectly fine worm. Why do we all need to be the early bird? Now, I say that as the person who was literally on a call yesterday with Riley when a sign up sheet came up, and I was like, I got to get it right now. But that was something
that was different.
That was different because it was between
the better worm.
Handing out pizza and being responsible for cleaning the bathrooms.
Yeah. 100%.
I was already checked in to the yeah. So that was different.
But that's strategy, right? Yeah. I'm with you. When that classroom sign up genius comes out, or I send it out as class parent, I'm like, oh, paper products.
Right. Yes, I was just gonna say that.
Amazon.
I was just gonna say that. When my kids
cutting fruit.
Yeah. Yes. When my kids were younger, I would sometimes sign up for the baked goods because they liked to bake. But as they got older and there was more of them, right? I just, I was like, napkins, plates.
Yep.
So
somebody can make the baked goods.
Or buy them.
So, right. So they want to do this.
I come to this from a very different perspective. And there's two reasons for this. I had a similar experience to you, Michaela, because my mom was super mom. But she was also 20. So, very young when she had kids. And but she did all the things, right? She sewed my clothes. She I don't know, she literally grew the food from the ground and like fed it to me. She was unbelievable. And when I had kids, I was not 20. I was grumpy and suffering. And I was, I spent a lot of time feeling real guilty about like how I was not my mom. And finally, she said to me, she's like, "You're not me. You don't need to be me. You're not supposed to be me. You're a great mom, your version of that, and that is sufficient. Like that there's no reason for you to be me. You should be you." And that is a wonderful mom, and you're never going to be me, and stop trying to be me, because
Right,
that
because
is not
you'll fail every single time.
right.
You'll
And it's going to
fail
be a
because
trend,
that's
and
Yeah.
you will be very unhappy. And I was, and once that conversation happened, and thank God she was willing to say that to me, and what a blessing that she had the I don't know, the awareness or the willingness to have that conversation with me, to put me at ease. And it took a while for me to like let that sink in and to accept that. And
I was going to say, it takes a lot of courage on your part too, to hear that the right way,
yeah,
right?
and
Like to embrace
You're
that
never,
and
you're never gonna be me.
right. Well,
but it
and,
was,
and then to do something with it, even
yeah,
if it takes time, right? This
yeah.
time idea is so preposterous. Like you have to embrace that. That's a lot of
Right.
years of undoing to get to that place of, oh,
But
I
it
am
was,
listening.
but it was also like instantly gratifying, because once I let go of this expectation that I was going to sew my children's clothes, I was significantly happier. And so when you allow yourself to be yourself, you will immediately be happier. It is immediate. That once you cross the bar, once you cross that threshold, the feeling is immediate. Getting to the threshold takes time. But once you get there, it's like, oh my God, what have I been doing all this time? I will say, and this is going to sound sarcastic, but I mean it in all sincerity. I set the bar very low for my kids once they started school. I was like, listen, I'm never going to be homeroom mom. I'm never bringing you baked goods to school. Like I'm going to be the mom who's like, oh no, there's a party. We're going to go to Walmart before school starts. Sorry. Like this is how it's going to, this is
That's
how we're
awesome.
playing this. Like, this is the mom you have. I will teach you all about history and women's rights. We'll march. It's going to be great, but this is the mom you've got. So welcome. So like,
And
if you,
that's really elevated too. That's a road mindset to be able to even decide that a few years ago. And
yeah.
say,
And and that's the expectation they have. Like, they don't get the Pinterest goodie bags. They get store-bought cakes. Like, that's, unless my mom makes them one,
And it's great to spin the Pinterest goodie bags by being like, it's just not environmentally friendly. Like
I don't even, I'm like, I don't have time for this. I drove you to 17 swim meets this year. Like, this is where you're getting.
so.
well, and that's where the value system comes in, right?
Right.
What's really important to you? Don't do the rest.
Well, so that's actually perfect for my question, because
Yeah.
I'm just going off script here and asking random questions. But that whole value system that you just mentioned about do what's important and don't do the rest. How do you apply that when you are making decisions, when you're making, I'm going to say yes to this and no to this?
Right.
Because I feel like we get hit some of them are big decisions, and those you take the time and you sit with and you make sure your values align with them. But we are thrown 87 decisions a day, and you don't have the time to do that lengthy value analysis. So how do you decide personally what you're going to say yes to and what you're going to say no to?
Well, so I'm going to go back to kind of March 2020 when the world went bananas, right? Pandemic, quarantine sets in. And I'm going to go here because it's a very, people can get this. When that happened, I no longer had the choice of how am I spending my time? What am I doing? Like the social stuff, right? And it got down to very simple: the health and wellness of my family, right? The sustainability of our resources, meaning the house, the food, and meaningful connection, right? Like staying in touch with my people. And that was it. Those were the three things that I could really bite my teeth into, because I couldn't control the rest. I could hardly control those things, right? But the decisions I made had to lead us toward the goal of the health and wellness of the family, the sustainability of our life, and the connections that we made. So as things started opening up again and people were coming in, it got very easy to say, well, that doesn't fit into those, right? But now there's all the school stuff and the sports stuff, and things are getting bigger and bigger. And I won't lie, I had to stop and come back to it and say, okay, are the values still the same as they were in March of 2020? They are, but the sustainability and the connection piece kind of changed some, right? Yes, the health and wellness did, but that was out of my control too. That's monitored by the school systems and the government, whatever. But it's still in that way, right? There's the idea of like FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. Suddenly that changed for me with COVID, because things started happening. I'm like, I can't go. My son has a particular medical situation going on. We can't risk, right? So it got very easy to start saying no to those things when it was about the big medical thing. It got harder when it was about, I just don't really want to put my energy and resources into that, right? But it's, do these people, do these events, do these occasions, what would it take me to go and do it? What would I get out of it? You know, and there were vacations that we didn't take because we just didn't want to, not because we don't love and care for the people, but it was more than we could manage with the resources. And I don't just mean financial, I'm really more specifically talking about the emotional, the energy, the output resource. So today it's very much the same, right? What's most important for my kids? And right now it's baseball and softball that is consuming our lives, and that's fine, right? We've established that our social life kind of gets put on hold, but guess what? We see our friends at the ball field. That's kind of cool too. But it's just that decision of, okay, if we have time, let's do that social fun thing, right? But it's also the thing of, I know there are 20 people in my school that can help get those bags into the PTO. And if I'm the one that steps up and does it every time it's offered, I'm taking away someone else's opportunity to serve, right? So am I responsible for this thing? If I am, then I need to figure out how it fits into my time and space. But if other people can share that burden, then I've learned through practice to kind of help let that happen. I've empowered my husband, my children to do more, to step up more. I've gotten good at saying, so I know I usually handle this, but I'm at my wit's end today. Can you please step in and help? And guess what? The world kept turning, right? So it's being clear on what the value is. It's being clear that the gold star is already inside. It doesn't have to be given. And it's my job to just kind of dust it off and say, it's here, but it may not look like Pinterest goodie bags. It may look like going to the store that morning. And good job, you know?
Well, and I think you said something important that seems to be a refrain in a number of our interviews and conversations this season, which is that I think it's important for all of us to remember that there's somebody else that can do something.
Yeah, I was
Like,
just thinking that too.
Somebody else, whether it's empty the dishwasher or, do the goodie bags. And it's not just a burden that you're placing on somebody else. It's they want to be able to do it. Like maybe there's a working parent who can't come into the class activities, and this is the way they can contribute. And
Right.
if it's always the same parents that take those opportunities, they're like, I have the time. I like Pinterest. I want to make the goodie bags.
Right,
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I fall in the trap of sometimes not asking for help around my home. And the other day, I was unloading the dishes, which is a task that my kids do. I was next to there and I was listening to a podcast. So I was doing it, but then my kids kept bothering me for things. And finally I was like, if you would have done your tasks, then I could be doing other
Right.
tasks. And of course, that's on me for doing it. But, it's important to know that like we all can fill different roles,
Mhm.
and it makes everything work better that way.
Yeah,
Right.
and
Go ahead.
but I was just going to say to think about it more as an opportunity than a burden, right?
Yeah.
To flip the way we think about it and to allow other people to step into their power and their space, and to make room for other people, I think is a helpful way to change the narrative a little bit.
Well, and what's a burden to you could be an opportunity for someone else.
Exactly.
Right. And, it's one thing to look at this in the home life, the family life, right? But in our careers too, like
Yep.
we don't have to stay in a position that doesn't serve who we are. Like in my previous employment, I met Riley when I was running our family business, garage door manufacturing, right? Not very like exciting, but it was really special because it's our family business. But I stuck it out for so long, even though I knew it wasn't my driver of my passion. I stuck it out because I believed nobody else can do this. It's got to be me. Like, oh,
Right.
and this scarcity effect, and then this idea that I was so super important. No, right? So we don't have to stay in behaviors, even if that behavior is a relationship or a career or how we interact with food,
Yeah.
right? We don't have to stay in behaviors that don't serve us just because we think we have to. If we step back and say, could somebody else do this job better? One of the best things I ever did was resign from the PTO, because the woman that stepped in and took my position is crushing it. She is crushing it, right? I gave it all I had. I got to the point where I knew that my best was like 80% on the best of days, and I could have kept doing it. And my ego did not want to step down. It did
Right.
not, because I'm on the board, right? I'm super special. But when I realized that what I was giving wasn't good enough for everybody else, and that my ego got in the way, it was a lot easier to say, okay, there's somebody out there with the skills and the motivation to jump in and do this. Doesn't have to be me.
Well, I think you've said two things that are really important I want to highlight, which is that the gold star is inside you, right? So and I love that as this concept, because we've talked about worth being something that we are all inherently worthy by just
Amen.
existing, right? And so on one hand, that gold star is inside you. You were born with it and you have it, and there's literally nothing that you have to do to earn that gold star. On the other hand, we're all not that special, and we're almost totally replaceable. And so,
oh my gosh, the contradiction is
but
phenomenal.
it's so important to remember that,
Yeah.
because there are certain things that you're not replaceable for as a parent. Or like you said, in the PTO, like there could be a role that you do better than somebody else. And I think it's one of the reasons that inherently that a lot of these organizations turn over people every 2 years, because you need somebody fresh and we're all replaceable. But at the same time, you all have that gold star and you just get it. You could have a day where you do absolutely nothing and you still get your gold star at the end of the day.
Well, and I think that's the trick, right? Like, I think that's the challenge, and the way I see a purpose-driven life, right? I think that's the title of a book. But anyway, I digress. But to me, it's, do you know that you have a gold star? And are you willing to show it? Right? Like, because back to success, that to me is the success. That I have a gold star and I'm not going to hide in my little hidey hole and just keep it to myself. Because then when I start pursuing the things that the universe that attract to my star, that my star is here for, I won't be replaceable, right? Those things will be all me. And yes, in jobs, we're always a little replaceable, but nobody else can be you. Nobody else can be us, right? Like I always think of Dr. Seuss, no one is you, it's truer than true. And I think that that's so important, because in the work that I do, that is the foundation of pulling back the layers and the expectations and the shoulds and the ways to be perfect and the demands on ourselves for belonging, and start being who we are, because the belonging gets easier when we say, this is who I am, this is who I love, this is how it goes, the universe will respond to that. But if I continue to hide who that person is, I will be blocking away everything that my gold star was here to do. Right.
So what do you do on kind of well, actually, we do need to take another quick break. So think about this, and then when we come back, we'll keep talking about it. But
Okay.
before we go to break, I want to talk about this self-worth concept, and I want to talk to you about sort of how you bolster your self-worth and your feelings of self-worth and your connection with the universe. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk more about that. So we'll be right back, everyone.
Know what I really love to do?
Take baths, go for walks, read, drink margaritas, hike.
Yeah, not what I was referring to. You know, we're recording a commercial right now.
I do, but I'm thinking outside the box, being adaptable.
As I was saying, what I love to do is host our live monthly workshops.
Oh, right. That's what we were talking about. Me too. They are a lot of fun to put together and host every month. And we can bring margaritas, so...
Join us for live conversation as we get a bit deeper into topics near and dear to our hearts. We go through everything from self-care to setting boundaries.
We share coaching tips, practical advice, and take questions from the audience. It's a whole lot of fun.
Sign up for our newsletter today at goboldlyinitiative.com/contact to make sure you hear about all the upcoming Go Boldly workshops.
You definitely don't want to miss out. Now, back to that show. Welcome back, everyone. And as I said before we took a break, we were talking about self-worth. And well, I mean, we've talking about that all along, but I'd like to kind of understand how you bolster your self-worth. Like, everyone has down days, everyone has tough moments or whatever. But do you have certain things you do, rituals maybe, or everyday actions, or things you do, before you go to bed, or habits that you've taken on that help you bolster your self-worth or your feelings of connection to the universe? Or we're kind of slightly off script here. We're going deeper with you.
That's okay. Listen, it's like we got shovels, we can dig in, we can dig out.
Yeah.
And I think one thing to say is I don't get a lot of grief. I don't want to say that, but people still look at me like, oh, you must have it all figured out, right? That like looking perfect and always having answers. So at the end of the day, I wish I had answers for everybody, right? But I don't. I have no answers for anyone except myself. And my dad has always said, all truths are self-evident. And that drove me nuts as a kid. But I'm like, here sitting today going, it's kind of right. When I actually ask myself, how'd it go? How did I do today? It's that evaluation. It's taking 5 minutes after a yoga practice and saying, that was great, and rushing out the door, or that was great. And what I felt was this, what I heard was this, where I felt stuck was here, and taking a few minutes to go deeper, right? I wish I did these things in like a every day, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night. I've got that 5-minute journal where you gratitude in the morning, plans, and all that stuff. And I love that, but I'm not a ritualistic person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not. I like to create it. So for me, I look, going back to that success description, I know that I feel most relaxed and prepared when I sit down and I go through the week and I get all my little duckies in some kind of a direction, maybe not a row, I'm not that good, and knowing what I have to do. Because what that does, anxiety to me is feeling like I'm out of control, or like a box of hangers I have to untangle. And I don't like living that in my day-to-day. So when I know that even when the stuff hits the fan, that I've done everything I can to set us up for success, to anticipate, and yes, this gets stressful, and yes, this can be busy making, but to me, being clear on what I have to do and how much responsibility I have to put into those things, right? So when things get thrown out, I get to say, I don't know, I'm not so sure if I can do this. Give me 20 minutes, let me figure it out. But the biggest tip I would say is that we have this precious little thing, and it's called a tiny moment. And between stimulus and response lives this moment. And that's where we get to choose how we interact with what happens next. And I love the idea of there's a stimulus and there's a response, excuse me, and there's a gap in between because I get to fill that, right? So when I see the email come out that 20 bags are due at the school, my immediate response, my lifelong response is, I have to do it.
Right.
But if I step back and I imagine that I'm watching this movie, I'm watching Michaela go, oh my gosh, I have to get this bag of dirt to the school. That means I have to run here. Okay. So watching as the viewer of that movie, I then get to say, how'd that go? Does that work? Does that get you where you have to be? And I find worth in that because I'm saying, I don't have to be anything that I'm not. Sometimes I do because I have responsibilities and some commitments and things.
Of course.
But the reality is then I know what I'm doing. I'm fulfilling a role, not playing, but I'm fulfilling a role that at one point had value to me. And I can either change it or I cannot, but I'm proud of myself for showing up, for stepping in, and for being willing to honor the commitments I've made or change my relationship with them in advance. I journal, I write things down a lot. I talk to myself in the car. I have these wonderful things in the shower called aqua notes.
You told me about those.
Right?
Yes, I'm so excited
I want to
about
know
them.
about these.
Oh my gosh. It's a waterproof notepad with a pencil.
Gosh.
Oh my gosh, right? So, you have the best ideas in the shower,
Yes.
right? I write them down and I scratch them out, and I probably don't know what they mean 5 minutes later. But sometimes I do, and sometimes they become a blog post,
Right. Such a good idea.
But it's those tiny moments, right? Like, because self-worth doesn't come from a day at the spa, right?
No.
That's lovely and wonderful, but self-worth comes from saying, yesterday was a real crap day. Why? What did I let get in the way? How did I get swept up in that chaos and stop stepping back and saying, how do I want to interact with this? Right? That tells me that today is worth my time and my introspection and the ability to be compassionate to yesterday's version of me. That's like, you tried. That kind of sucked.
Yeah, I want to amplify something you said that I think is really, really important. And there's a nugget in there that I would just want to pull out and amplify for everyone listening. And it's you were talking about how you think about things and how you make decisions. And even if they're decisions that aren't perhaps ones that you are super excited about, you've made them with intentionality, right? You've made them with choice as opposed to reaction, and setting up boundaries and making intentional choices around the things you're doing amplifies your own self-worth, right? Because then you're not just reacting in the moment. You're not just behaving and running amok in the world. You're making
using old behaviors. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're making intentional choices. And so maybe you don't want to fill those 20 bags for the PTO, but you've gone, okay, I haven't done it much for the PTO in the last couple of months. I can take this one thing on. It'll be okay. It's not upsetting to me. I'm making this intentional choice and I've set this boundary and I feel good about it. Right. And I think that that's a really important distinction that you've made in your decision making. And it does really impact our self-worth when we start to make choices about our lives that are intentional instead of reactionary. And it's a hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to do, especially as parents, to be honest, because quite frankly, we're just so busy. It's just hard. But I just wanted to call that out because I thought that was such an important point that you made. I mean, all the points were important, but that one really stuck out to me as something that I think people really struggle with, because as you said, it's that moment in between where you have to kind of take a pause and look at, how am I going to resolve this situation? Am I going to react, or am I going to make an intentional choice about what's happening? So I just wanted to highlight that.
And very well done too. I like how you kind of summed it up and wrapped it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, of course.
it's so important to know why we do what we do, because people talk about the hamster wheel all the time. And that, I know that wheel. I mean, I built that wheel. I mean, it has glitter and sparkles and all the things because it was supposed to be pretty, but right. But it's tedious and tiresome, and you feel so busy, which again brings that self-worth and that value the longer you run on that wheel. But then stepping back, right? Watch the movie, watch you, the actor, on that wheel, and see how it's feeling.
Yeah.
Right. And if it doesn't work for you, build a new wheel.
I think this concept,
or jump off the wheel.
Yeah. But I think the concept, we talk so much about the difference between busyness and being actually busy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being intentional is that difference, right?
Yeah.
And you can be busy. I mean, my goal for the next 2 weeks that are incredibly busy is to pause, be in the moment, like enjoy what I'm seeing, try to experience it the best I can, and be present as much as I can. And that's the difference, where you have those days where you're like, did nothing, but you also felt that busyness all day long. Like you were just on the hamster wheel all day long, and you're like, but I didn't do anything. I don't know what happened. And that's where
those are really important days, right? Sometimes you got to get all that stuff done and be done with it, right?
Right.
But to look back and be like, I have no idea what I did, or I'm pretty sure I did some things. I know I wasn't stressed out, whatever. Like, let it be what it is, right?
Yeah.
There's no sense kicking ourselves and self-shaming and judging when, there's enough of that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And if we really want to align our how we spend our time, how we agree to be busy with the things that bring us joy, that's it. It's all right. So I have to do all these wonderful things today. Great. I'm not thrilled about it, but can I put music on in the car? Can I call a friend while I'm driving? Can I take the 15 minutes and, get the shopping for the trip done, and just know that I'm still producing things that matter, despite the rigmarole and tedium, if you will, of the things that we're doing in our day-to-day. I know you guys listen to podcasts during all the crazy mundane times. I love grocery shopping alone, yes, but I put a podcast on, put an audiobook on, I stroll through, and it's wonderful. It's, yes, I have to make the list before because I'm in cloud, gosh knows what, which takes time. But when I make that list, when I know that I've evaluated, again, back to those things, I know that I'm making good decisions that are healthy and sustainable for my family. And I get to enjoy the experience, right? Yeah. So as a former teacher, I used to say to my kids, if it's not fun, don't do it. But if you have to do it, make it fun, right? We have to do things in life. We cannot escape going to the DMV. We can hate it and make it the most miserable experience ever, or we can be prepared with all of our documents and show up and be willing to wait.
Right.
Because that's the reality. And if we think it's going to be something else, we'll be disappointed every time.
Well, it's funny you say that, because a couple of weeks ago, I had so many things I needed to return, just like they accumulated. Mm-hmm. And so I had my podcast, I had my Kindle, like I was ready to wait in line. There were no lines anywhere. And I was actually sort of like disappointed. I was like, really? And I mean, I got to Costco and like, I was literally the next person in line. And I made a joke to the guys like, oh, if you were here two hours ago, but literally that's the way it was. I would go in a store, I'd return something. By the time I left, the line would be out the door. And I was like, I guess I'll be in my book at home, just relaxing
and that's
with all my extra time.
And that's the magic, right? Like you can plan and prepare for the worst and be surprised.
You just never know.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, my bar was low, but
But that's true. The fear setting practice, the act of being like, what's the very worst that could possibly happen? How can I make it less worse?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Military strategists talk about this, and it's not, they know they can't change the conditions on the field, right? But how do we make the conditions less bad?
Right.
Right. We bring the Kindle, we bring the things, we satisfy, we make sure we have water. And then if we get to go home and listen on our own, sitting on our porch, enjoying our peaceful house, bonus.
Yeah. Well, clearly we could talk to you forever.
Yes.
And I think we would like to, but I do think we need to wrap up in the interest of keeping the episode not too long for our listeners. And so unless I'm wrong, Riley, is it time for the quick response? The
Are you
bold
ready?
questions?
You're going to bold
I
question?
think so.
All
I'm
right.
ready.
So here are
Let's
the
do it.
rules. There's 5 questions. Answer it. It doesn't have to be one word, but short answers, and I will not make any follow-up questions. So
And it'll
I'm not
torture
very
me.
laconic. I'm not super short-winded.
so well, do your best.
Okay.
All right. Question number 1. What is on your nightstand?
I have books, lots of books on my nightstand. I won't tell you all the ones because that's too long-winded, but I am reading Michael Schor's How to Be Perfect, which I think is fantastic. He's the guy that did The Good Place. Amazing. So anyway, I digress.
Okay.
Mhm.
Question number 2.
Go ahead.
Oh, do you have more?
Nothing really. A humidifier or a diffuser, I mean, that's all.
Oh, that's good to know. Question number 2. Who is at the top of your playlist right now?
Well, my Spotify playlist has the Happy Mix that has been making me very happy. It's got a lot of like Andy Grammer, which is different for me. Some pop fun songs, a little Michael Franti, and Michael Franti is always at the top of my list.
Excellent. Number 3, how do you relax?
Oh, I'm not great at it, right? Relaxation is not like my best thing, but when I can sit outside at my house on my deck, look at the creek, and really just be in that moment of feeling the outdoor, the energy, and taking a moment of gratitude, that's the most relaxing. And it's only at 5-10 minutes, and I can do that.
Awesome. What is your favorite beverage?
Coffee, water, Tito's and soda with a splash of crayon and a lime.
Nice. And last but not least, what is the best advice you have ever received?
This one's tough.
It could be a quote that you love, something.
I would say, be here now. It's what my dad always said as kids, and just be willing to be here and be curious and keep your eyes open and without judgment, just be here and live fully in this moment.
That's good advice.
Awesome.
I like
Excellent advice.
I have so many follow-ups. I do every time. I obviously am a talker.
I will gladly answer all of them.
I know. We'll have to talk later.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was delightful having you on and having this conversation. Obviously, as Tova said before, we could keep talking to you for a very long time. Before we go, where can people find you? Like a website, on social media? What can we share with people?
So I am across the interweb at My Joy Coach. So the website is myjoycoach.com. Social media is My Joy Coach. Again, I'm Michaela Birdyshaw. I'm not hard to find.
Okay.
But I would love to have people join in and be a part of our community.
Awesome. So we will share all of that in our show notes and on the social media when we post the episode, so people will be able to find you. And we will be back next week with more on busyness and self-worth. We'll be talking about comparisons, which I'm actually excited to talk about because I find it such a fascinating topic personally. But for for now, that is it. Thank you so much for everyone joining us. We love having you all here. Tova, you have anything else you want to add for this week?
Thank you for joining us, Michaela. It's been wonderful.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed this, and we should definitely do it again because we have a lot to say.
For sure.
And let's talk about comparative suffering before you jump on the call for next week, because it is a huge hot button for me.
Oh,
I'd
excellent.
love to chat about that.
All right. Sounds good. All right. We will be back next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much for listening to We Go Boldly podcast. We know you're busy and we love spending time with you.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. Head to Apple Podcasts right now to rate and review our show. While you're there, be sure to click that subscribe button.
Want more us time? Follow us on all the socials at Go Boldly Together.
Want even more us time? As in all the coaching pizzazz. Find us at goboldlyinitiative.com for all the info.
We will be back with more excitement, research, and deep thoughts next week.
Until then, keep on being the bold, brave, amazing people we know you already are.